Hello! Welcome to another Game Guru Twitch broadcast. I am your host Lee Bamber. It is now 4 PM BST, that's British Summer Time. And as usual, this broadcast comes to you live, unrehearsed, unscripted, often prone to failure. But I think that's the way you like it. You'd have complained by now already. I think we're charging on very much towards our 50th broadcast, which is great stuff. And I'm surprised I've still got stuff to talk about. No, I'm not. I could talk about nothing for hours on end. So, as usual, I keep my ear to the ground during the week. If anyone wants anything discussed, they can email me, put it on a forum, put it on a message, put it on one of the social feeds, of which there are now many. But the main one is a forum that we have created, a little post, so you can post your recommendations. So I'm going to go there right now, because nothing really leapt out at me during the week in terms of what people wanted to hear. So I'm going to go in and have a look. Now, I did check out, which is why it's actually highlighting as new post. I did check this out earlier, and it kind of, I wouldn't say descended into, but it certainly went off on a tangent, exploring the many wonders of posting the entity name into your LUA script when you wanted to kind of scan for a particular entity name, which was actually highlighted last week, actually, when I was doing some crazy round the house way of scanning every entity that was in the level, and then based on the health value, the strength value, that would allow me to specify what each entity was. It was really horrid, but it sort of worked. And now there's this sort of bounce between this is a command which can get the entity path, but that's not necessarily what you want. You want the actual name that's entered into the entity properties here. How do I get that one? Well, there's a way to do that as well. So it started to look like this was the subject of a really good Twitch broadcast. How to get the name of your entity into LUA script and then use that in a practical way. And this information has already been posted in a way in the forum already, so I am repeating information that's already out there, but it was never made into the form of a broadcast, i.e. eventually a video. So I think it's probably worth chasing that down. But before I do that, I just want to highlight for those in video land that this is a live broadcast, and something you don't see is a chat window on my second screen, so anyone who's attending live can ask any questions and I'll answer them as best I can, which includes questions about what I'm talking about, but also questions that have absolutely nothing to do with Game Guru. So I'm just going to scroll through, get past the hellos and good afternoons and good mornings, depending on where you are in the world. And it looks like there are no questions yet. So yes, it looks like we can charge ahead with the general feel of what came out of this post, which was how to get the entity name and then use that. So that's what we're going to try now. And like I said, this is completely unrehearsed to such a point that when I click this button, you'll notice I'm using beta 8. This is a version that's almost ready for release. I know you've been very patient waiting for version 1.131. Well, it's nearly almost entirely ready for me to at least put it out as a public beta. So that will probably happen today before I leave for the evening, because I've got a big meeting tomorrow, long day tomorrow. So I'll probably put that out onto the public beta, so not just anyone of the beta group, but anyone in the public can get access to it, and let me know if it works for them. I have done some screwing around with the post-process shader. I may have screwed it up for some people. I want to know whether I have before we actually go live with the version that everyone's going to get, whether they like it or not. So that will go out later today if the last bug that I want to attend gets fixed quickly. So the basic idea is, what we want to do is detect a particular entity. So for example, if we had a masked soldier, so we have two of these guys, but then we want to detect the Uzi soldier as, you know, we want to identify that in another script. So there's another script running, and you want to be able to find where that entity is, what the entity index is, and then do things to this particular character. Horrible things. So if we go into properties, you see its name, Uze space soldier, capital U, capital S. So that's the thing we want to get inside this sort of third-party script. So we'll pop down a start marker. And as many of you may know by now, the barrel of infinite flexibility. I do think at some point we're going to have places to add global scripts, so you don't have to keep creating dynamic entities just to hold a script. So we're going to make sure that it's always active yes, so it doesn't matter where you're in the world. Switch its physics off and make it immobile. So it's just going to sit there, and all it's really, this barrel's job is just to run this script. What script? Well, we're going to write that now. So if we go into script bank, we're going to create a new script for ourselves. Let's just take an existing one and then rename it to something nasty, because that's what I think I'm going to do to that character. But it's very useless as a proper name, so from my professional side of my brain say, no, make it something practical. So let's say find a specific entity. There you go. Friendlier name. So we go into there. Remember, you've got to have the function names the same as the file name. Like so. And we're going to do something simple like a for next loop. And for that, I'm going to find something out here which has a for next loop, because you know, Lua is not my primary language, not my strongest suit, but I certainly know how to cut and paste. So that's what I'm going to do now. Here we are. So that's the format for a for next loop. Just that, basically. I say for next. There is no next in Lua. I come from the old world of BASIC, and for next was the syntax. So change PA to N, increment it by 1. Let's go to 5. So that's a loop. So when this script gets called, it's going to run through this loop. There's nothing in it right now, but it'll run through it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with N being 1, 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So we save that. There's our script. We've created it in the right place. We go back to our barrel and we assign that script. So F, find a specific entity, apply. So now we save that under, say, test. And when we run, nothing really should happen apart from 3 guys who are going to try and gang up on me. I'm probably going to give myself a gun as well, just so I can quiet them down, because as I run around, yes, they're going to take exception to me. So 2 things need to happen. 1, I want to arm myself with an Uzi with lots of bullets and give myself lots of health. Let's save that, run again. So now I have the ability to do things. 1, suffer their indignations of those attacks, and 2, set these graphics up high because I got a nice graphics card. I want to see nice things, like so. So now we've got that. Let's put a bit more specular. So they can shoot me all they want, but I'm pretty indestructible right now. Thank you. So, oh yeah, that's another thing. Remember we assigned the script to the barrel? If you blow the barrel up, that script's not going to run anymore. So there's another thing you can do with a supposedly indestructible barrel. Set its strength to 99,999, and just for extra certainty, make sure it doesn't explode. Save. So, there we go. We've got 3 enemies, 2 have the same name, 1 has a different name. If we just double check, yeah, Uzi, soldier, like so. So now we have to do some clever things. First things first, we need to get the names into Lua. That's really the the golden thing. So if we go to default, and I'm going to copy default, and I want to do something like it's going to be assigned to these soldiers, right? So we'll call it clever soldier. So that's the name. of a second script, a second new script. Again, we're going to dink, dink. But now there's something new we can do. And for that, I'm going to have to refer to a script called weapon.lua. There's two kinds of init you can do. You can just do the regular init, which basically is just a function which allows you to initialize some variables, local or otherwise. But there's also init underscore name, which has some clever properties, and I bet you can guess what it already can do. You see, not only will it give you the E, which is the entity index of this particular entity, but it also passes in name. Name comes from that name we was talking about, which is, if I go into this one, see, Uzi Soldier, that's the name, that's where it gets it from. So now what we can do is go into this guy, change it from AI Soldier to Clever Soldier, apply that. And then we can take this guy and change his script as well to Clever Soldier. Apply changes. And then we can extract him, put a clone of him over there. So now it's now using the second script, right, which is this one here, Clever Soldier. So just to make sure that works, we're going to do two things. First of all, it'd be good if we could print out the name that was passed in. So let's say name. Now don't worry about all this gobbledygook. If you're not used to Lua scripting, that's fine. We have to start somewhere. But what I'm actually doing is creating what's called an array, like here. And in here, I'm going to assign the array some values. So an array is, imagine a box with lots of little compartments inside it, and you can fill each compartment with an item, a value, a name, whatever it is. So my array is like a box with lots of subsections, and I'm using E, which is like it's called an index or a subscript. And what that can do, it specifies which box I want to put something in. So you can have a unique box for each number. So the box can be named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So E would be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So in the space of, let's say a space, if E was 1, this would be in box 1, I would put name. And name, like I said, is the string of that entity that is put in there. So you can imagine if you've got these soldiers 1, 2 and 3 all using the same script and all calling the same initialization name function, but they'll have a different index number and potentially a different name. So we're storing all their names. So 1, 2, 3, whoever gets to use this is going to store their names like so. This becomes very useful later, which I'll demonstrate, but for right now I'm just going to instruct this soldier script to display on the screen that name that was stored in the init. And this is the moment of truth. Like I said, this is unscripted. I believe this should work based on pure assumption of logic. So if we've saved that, and that's all correct, pressed save, when we run, we should see 3 characters with their names displayed near them. And that's smug mode, ladies and gentlemen. Masked soldier, Uzi soldier, masked soldier. So the name that was in the entity properties has now been transferred over to a script, which is the big crux of that debate. How to get that into this? Well, that's how you do it. And it's 60 minutes into the broadcast. I try to make these things 30-minute sessions. I often go over, but 30 minutes is a nice amount of time just to get your digestion of information before it starts getting a little bit boring. So just to prove that was real, because it might not be real, you see, that might actually come from the parent name rather than this modifiable one, in which case I'm going to call it a bug and I'll fix it for version 1.131. It's guaranteed. So let's say I call it mutant. Yeah, because it's a mutated soldier. So save that, we run. What we want to see now is in the middle, the soldier in the middle will say mutant. That's what we're hoping we want. Hey, we can proceed, because without that I would have been a bit stuck. So they still have all the stuff you'd expect of a standard AI, which means they can take damage, they can die, they can ragdoll, you know, they render, they have shadows, all that kind of crazy cool stuff. But they don't have any, they don't do anything, they're just Well, they'll just stand there. Why? Because the script has nothing in it. All they're doing is displaying the name. They're doing absolutely nothing else. Whereas the soldier one, look at the difference between that script and this one. This is what makes soldiers run around and shoot you all the time. But what we can do is, just to keep things fun, is just pick out the bit which makes them look at you and fire at you. So that's the look at player script. Command, sorry. So that's going to, not only are they going to display the name, they're going to look at you. And is there one where we can have them fire at us? That would be nice. Fire weapon, there it is. You can fire the weapon. I also noticed there was another command you may also get confused over. Rotate to player. You see, originally these were two separate commands. Look at player, it would turn its head. But then as we went on through lots of new character assets, not all character assets can actually turn their head. So rotate to player rotates the entire body. But look at player is sort of a head thing. So we'll leave that out for now. I'll pop it back in if we've got some time to play around with it. So now what should happen, if we save that script and run, all three characters, whether they see you or not, are just going to rotate to me and start firing. Yeah, so you can just hear the noise. Yep. Not doing much in the way of firing, are you? Who shot me? Right. Because I was getting too close. You know why? Because look, the guns are down. You see? And one of the little tricks about the engine is it won't bother shooting the gun if they're not even pointing the gun at you. Otherwise, enemies shooting the floor makes no sense whatsoever. So there's something else we can do, which again borrows from the soldier script, is to set them a little bit more aggressive. So we've got character control stand, so they'll be standing, but we want them armed. We want them armed to their teeth. So we do character control armed. Now we'll probably, you could set that in the init. Well, let's try it in the init first, which is there. So set them up as armed, and then thereafter in the main loop, they'll just run around, guns raised, shooting at you. Not running around, just guns raised, shooting at you. Yeah. So here we are at the OK Corral. Headshot. Oh no. Yes. Reason you don't get a headshot is that's a script feature. If you look at AI Soldier and scroll to about here, you can see this is the headshot command. If whatever you hit on the character's model was the head limb, or anything associated with the head limb, then it goes into this sequence where it detects which direction the bullet came from. It triggers different animations based on that, and then once it falls, after 200 milliseconds, it switches it over to ragdoll. So you can actually set health to 0, it makes it a ragdoll, and then it goes to ragdoll force. It's all very clever stuff. You know, often there's probably not enough credit being given to the AI system in terms of this is just what we've thrown out there with all this sophistication, but there's nothing to stop you going in and adding your own nuances to the AI system and your own behaviours and exactly what the enemy should do and when, and what's the consequence of the various actions they and you can do. So all that power's in there, you just have to go in and have a play. Right now, my script is the simplest script you can ever imagine. So that describes very simply how to get the name of the entity into each individual entity and how to display it. But what's the point? What's the point of that? Well, the reason is, what if you wanted to do a for next loop to single out an enemy, right? Let's say you only wanted the mutant to fire because, you know, they've got a diseased brain or something. So instead of gname, or in addition to gname, we can have something like g gone mad, right? So that's a new global array, again, as before. And we'll initialize it here for larks, and we set it to 0, which means by default no one's gone mad, right? Now let's say that if you have gone mad, then, which means someone set that array to 1, then it starts firing. So essentially what we've done is set up a per entity flag, which means if we can set this, any of these entities flags to 1, then we'll trigger it to fire. But we're not going to trigger this flag here. We're going to trigger it in our other script, the one we created first. If anyone remember, find a specific entity. Well, this is where it gets fun. And probably confusing a little if you're not too familiar with scripting. So we'll get rid of soldier, and we'll get rid of weapon. We'll move clever soldier to there. So basically this is the first thing that's really happens. All your soldiers are initialized, you get the names, set up the flags, get them to arm themselves, and then rotate to you at all times and show the name. And if they've gone mad, then fire. That's the first script. Now the second script is going to run through all the entities in your level. And the way you do that is you get another for next loop. But we've done the for next loop. What you'll need is this name, also declared here. So this script knows that is a global array. So you need to, even though you've duplicated it, it's basically the same one. It's just sharing the global declaration. So now we've got that here. So now what we can do, something rather clever, is change N to E, which makes it a little bit more sense. Or EE. Because there's something about E you need to know. The find a specific entity.lua, that's a script attached to the barrel. So the barrel will have a unique E number, and I can show you what that is. If I hover over the barrel, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it says entity 5 and then curly brackets 70,007. So 5 is the number of the barrel, so E equals 5. If we hover over this character, entity is 1, so that's E equals 1. That entity is 3, so that's E equals 3. And that's entity equals 2, that's E equals 2. So you've got 1, 2 and 3 for these characters, and barrel's 5. I'm guessing the start marker is E equals 4. So that's what the E means, is it's passed in. But if we did for E equals 1 to 5 here, we'd overwrite this E that was passed in. So we want a different local variable, so we'll call that EE. So now we're going to check for a particular entity. We want to check that mutant. You're going to single that out and switch its flag so it becomes totally nutsoid. So we're going to get a global array. Subscript is EE, not E, because we're going to use the subscript that's generated by this for next loop, or for do loop. We can check for strings. We have string capabilities in LUA, which is very cool. Now I've just switched off the soldier one. I'm going to bring it back because I know the soldier script has pretty much everything in it. So if you ever want to just mine a script for all useful things, you don't have to look much further than the AI_soldier.lua. So here it is. This is how you would compare two strings, which is what we need. So if string so we're going to start with inside this nest is where you start, and then you work your way out of the nest. So the first thing is going to be the lowering of whatever that is into lowercase, so uppercase and lowercase. So if you've got capitals in your entity, I don't really want to be matching capitals and stuff. So first thing we're going to do is make it lowercase. Then use string.find to find any instance of the word mutant. And if I couldn't find anything, it would return nil. If it does find something, anything, it returns something other than nil, which is what we're interested in. Did you find something with the word mutant in it? And if you come here, the answer is yes. So we'll just double check to make sure that our character does indeed. Yeah, mutant. So if we just right click, yeah, mutant with a capital M, but our lowercase thing takes care of that. And like I said, what we want to do is to make it nutsoid. So we're going to take this global, so we declare that as well. Now you'll notice that the two globals share the same idea for subscripts. It's just using the entity index all the time. So, you know, if this, which holds the word mutant, which EE was probably, it will be 3, then you put you set the flag for subscript 3 because it's representing the same character. So that sets the flag. So now in theory, and this is just a thought, if I've now saved all these scripts and then run it, only the mutant will set its flag to 1, and then when the script is run, only ones with flags of 1 will fire their weapon. So in theory, only the middle character will now fire their weapon. Let's see. Bet I've lost me. Fan specific, line 11, bad argument to lower, string expected, got nil. Okay, good enough for me. Let's find out what happens at line 11 on that command. So it doesn't like this for some reason, so we're just going to have to step through it a little nicer. Yeah, I think that's null. Right now it's null. Remember, scripts are all fired off at the same time. So g_name could very well not have anything in it, and in fact, it's not that the characters haven't been filled in, because the init ones are called first, so those are fine. But can anyone guess the problem? We're actually running for 1 to 5. We're going through things like the player start marker. That doesn't have a name. The barrel doesn't have a name because we didn't use this particular script to assign it. So there's at least 2 out of 5 entities that have nil instead of a string. And you don't give string.lower a parameter of nil. It just don't like it. So you can guard against that by checking if it's not nil, which is that. So now only the ones that have a string, or at least something that's not nil, can then go on to pass in as a parameter into string.lower. Now that should be a little bit better. But you can go even better than that. If you want to take error trapping to the nth degree, and you'll often find in my broadcast, I don't go to almost any degree really to do error trapping. It might seem like bad code. Call it expedient code. It's just a way to actually get my point across without spending 4 hours teaching programming every time I switch on the camera. So, gone mad, that could also be, you know, not present, so make sure that that's available as well. And then, yes, that might be available, the flag might not be available. I mean, we've almost guaranteed it because we've actually, if you've set the name, you've definitely initialized that, so that should exist. But we're not taking any chances, and more than that, by assigning 1, you're actually already creating something in there. LUA is very clever about you don't have to pre-initialize too much stuff, but you do need to at least make sure that array exists before you try and write into array at a particular subscript. Now in theory that should do all the things that we need to do. So now when we run we shouldn't get an error, and only the middle guy could shoot at us because he's nuts. Hello, do you want to shoot at me? Do you want to move? Yes. So now this guy won't shoot. So he's friendly. Thank you very much. And he's shooting at me. And this guy, yes. And he's not shooting. See, I can jump up and down. He's definitely not wanting to shoot at me. Very kind. And then finally, thank you. So there it is. Not only have we shown you how to actually get the entity names from entity properties into the LUA script, now I've showed you how a practical way of scanning your entities and looking for them. And this one's pretty useful if you've actually got for equals 1 to some very large number. This will make sure that if that very large number doesn't even exist anywhere, then you're not going to try and use it and it just skips over. But you'll have a rough idea of how many entities are in your level and just triple it, stick that number in there, and then you're quite safe. There has been requests that we can return the exact maximum number of entities in a level. That can kind of work to some degree, but sometimes you'll create entities, then delete some earlier ones, and those don't shuffle back. So those are like empty ones. So you might have like, you might think you've got 3,000 entities, but if you deleted 1,000 during the course of creating your level, you'll only actually have 2,000 entities, but you'll need an index up to 3,000 if that makes any sort of sense. So I've hit the half-hour point, and I'm really pleased that I managed to cover the subject quite thoroughly and get it all working without too many errors. But I just glanced over at the chat board and there are 2 question marks begging for my attention from it's like light green on grey. It's a very difficult word to read. Leyland Ok. Can you dynamically determine the number of entities so you don't have to hard code the number of entities in the for next loop? You've anticipated my whim. Absolutely not. There's just no way of getting that number in. I mean, there might be. Bear with me. I often add many things and then forget half of them. to make room for more things. So, wouldn't you know, there's a global called Entity Element Max. This must be my smug mode day. So that's the value he was talking about. So if we change 5 to that and save, and also get very paranoid because that might be 0, so we want to find out what that contains by doing a prompt. 2 different kinds of prompt in Lua, prompt and prompt local. Prompt will display it at the bottom of the screen, prompt local will place it next to the entity when you specify an entity value. So this should tell us whether that number actually returned anything or not. It should do. You know, I wouldn't put it in global Lua unless I coupled it up to some real data, and there you go. G entity element max is 5, so I don't need to add it because I've already added it. How cool is that? And another question from same dude. Also, why was the mutant shooting sporadically? It's got a fire rate. It's being given very specific instructions on how much he can shoot me. So if we go to properties and set fire rate, if we look at the description, set value to 0 for rapid fire and greater value for slow rate. So you look at 300 as the amount of intermittent delays the enemy can insert. If we put a 0 as instructed by that little description there and save, and then run, should he fire faster or slower? Is that fast enough for you? Yeah! Of course, his gun has infinite ammo, but what I found was when I added reloading into all the characters, it was so easy to shoot them. All you do is wait, because they'd fire and fire and fire, and then you'd hear them faffing about with the gun, and that's when you could pop out and pop them out of the game. And the AI isn't the smartest cookie off the shelf at the moment, so by hindering them more with reloads just felt a bit cruel. Once we get AI really dirting out the way, hiding behind dynamic objects, poking the heads out of windows and stuff like that, I will definitely reintroduce enemy reloading just to create that authenticity, because what you got right now, that was a bit brutal. Rage exclamation mark, absolutely. Both me and the enemy. So that's how you do it, and I'm really pleased that you asked that question, because it pushed me to have a bit of a look, and there it was. So it was probably added in the last couple of updates. So that's what you would do to scan the entire field of entities in your level, and then use something like this trick to identify individual entities as you see fit. So I'm really happy to end it there. I think that's a nice, quick, concise Twitch broadcast that can convert into a video and be very useful for many people out there in Game Guru land. So until next Wednesday at 4 PM BST, I hope you've enjoyed it. Join me next week if you want me to talk about something specific. You know where to post it. It's that forum we was playing with earlier. And I just want to mention before I leave, because I posted it here so I wouldn't forget, and I promised I would mention it in my blog because that's the kind of guy I am. Salutes to the Original Adventure is a concept centre currently running on Game Jolt. It wants your votes, so check it out, see if you like the game, and if you think it's a good effort from Game Guru and the author, then please sign up to Game Jolt and then give it a vote, so you can push up Game Guru projects further up the tree. So I wanted to mention that, so there it is. So until next Wednesday, I shall love you and leave you and say goodbye, which is goodbye.